Hey, yeah. What am I doing later? Oh, well, my wife and I are going to see a movie. Yeah. What about you and Deborah? Okay. Yeah, so I'll see you and her there. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, we'll be there. Okay, thanks. Bye. Yeah. Okay, I'll put that there for now. Oh, hey everyone. I'm Alex. Thanks for clicking and welcome to this lesson on English pronoun order. So in this video, I will give you what are considered to be the grammatical rules or grammatical preferences in some cases for pronoun order in English. I will give you what is technically correct, but I will also tell you what you will hear in public, in movies, and other areas where pronoun order sometimes is not followed, or the rules of subjects and objects are not followed. So, to begin, the two basics. One of the most common questions I get is, should I start a sentence with him and I, or he and I, or etc.? And the first rule is for subject pronouns, right? We use subject pronouns in the subject position. So let's look at the subject pronouns first. The subject pronouns are I, you, he, she, we, and they. So these are subject pronouns because they do actions, right? So you always follow a subject pronoun with some kind of action. So Darren and I went out for coffee. If you're ever not sure whether you should use me or I in this position, all you have to do is erase the other person's name and kind of say, wait, is it correct to say I went out for coffee or me went out for coffee? Oh, yeah, I went out for coffee. So Darren and I went out for coffee. You and he need to talk, okay? So I know you might say, but you and him sounds so good in this case. You and him need to talk. Nope, because you would never say him need to talk. You would say he needs to talk, for example, or him needs to talk. No. So you and he need to talk. So subject position, doing an action, you need to use a subject pronoun. Now, in casual speech, in everyday speech, people don't always follow this rule. I'm sure that sometimes I might not follow this rule. I try to follow this rule all the time, but sometimes I will say, oh, my sister and me went out for breakfast, right? My sister and me did something. This is technically, grammatically incorrect, but you might hear it in casual situations. However, if you are writing an essay, if you are writing anything academic, professional, make sure you stick to the actual rules. And rule number one, use subject pronouns in the subject position. And this makes rule number two very logical as well. Use object pronouns in the object position. So the object pronouns are me, excuse me, 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 you, him, her, us, them, right? So when they are being acted upon, so objects can be, they can come after prepositions, they can come after verbs. Usually they are receiving an action or they are the object of something. So for example, Tim spoke to her and me, right? Tim spoke. Who did he speak to? Oh, he spoke to her. He spoke to me. Now, you might think you can say, Tim spoke to her and I. It sounds nice. It sounds like it's formal, and yeah, that should be proper. This is actually a hypercorrection, Okay, so this means that it's corrected and it sounds like it's formal and it sounds like it's more proper, but it's actually grammatically incorrect to say Tim spoke to her and I. It's like, no, you don't say Tim spoke to I. You say Tim spoke to me. So Tim spoke to her and me. Next example, I saw you and him at the cafe. So I saw you, right? I did the action. I saw you. What's beautiful about you is it's the subject and the object. You're never wrong with you. So I saw you and him, right, at the cafe. You would never say, I saw he and you, or I saw you and he, because you can't say, I saw he. No, I saw him. I saw him, the object, at the cafe. Okay. Again, if you say Tim spoke to her and I, I don't know if it's an English accent, a British accent, or an Australian accent that I'm doing now. So her and me, her and I, eh? No? Okay. I apologize to all of my Australian viewers. If you are an Australian viewer, if you are someone living in Australia learning English, say hello in the comments. Tell me how terrible my accent is. Okay, these are the basics. Subjects, subject position, objects, object position. Simple enough. Sometimes people mix them up in casual speech. Now, let's look at the order. What should the order be? So, one rule, place the first person at the end. This is especially true when you are dealing with multiple subjects in the subject position. So, he and I left work early. Tanya and I don't get along. It sounds weird if I say I and he left work early. I and Tanya don't get along. In the subject position, it just sounds so good just to say he and I, she and I, right? Tanya and I. It sounds really nice when it's put in that order, and that's why this is the order. So next we have the bus didn't stop for him and me. Okay. If you read the Associated Press, the rule from the Associated Press, they say that pronoun order in some cases doesn't matter. It just depends what you want to emphasize. So in the case of the object, I would agree. I think that if you say, the bus didn't stop for me and him, it's perfectly fine. It didn't stop for me, and it didn't stop for him. It didn't stop for us. However, if you do read, I think it's Collins. Collins says that no, you have to place the first person at the end. So him and me is what you have to do. Now, a lot of people say, I hesitate to use a lot of people. I will say, some people say, the reason you put I last is that it's more polite, that you put other people before yourself and that you put yourself last. So this is one explanation for this rule. So again, so far, basics, subject and subject position, object and object, first person at the end. Okay, we got some more. Follow me, follow me. Come here, come here. Okay, rule number 4. For singular pronouns, the most common order is second person, third person, and first person. As we have mentioned, first person always at the end, feels good, especially in the subject position. So second is always you, right? The person standing right in front of you. And then third person, oh, he and she. And first person is I. So listen, you, he, and I need to talk, right? You, he, and I. He, you, and I. It sounds okay, but again, the most common order is second, third, and first person. And this is also taken from the Collins Dictionary. So if you refer to Collins, they will tell you second, third, and first. And here, they saw you, her, and me together. Now, in this case, it's just much more common just to say us, right? They saw us together. But for the purposes of showing this rule in action, I wrote, they saw you, her, and me together. Okay. And you're saying, wait, is it I or me? Wait, do you say they saw I or they saw me? They saw me, right? So they saw you, her, and me together. Remember rule 2, objects for object position. All right, rule 5, for plural pronouns, now it gets a little wilder. The most common order is third person, second person, and first person. So you go they, you, and we. These are 3 groups of people, right? So they, that group, you, your group, and we, like my group, need to discuss this. Now, of course, you can also just say we, right? We need to discuss this. All of us need to discuss this. But if you feel the need to separate between they, you, and we, make sure you're going third person, second person, first person. And he yelled at them and us. Now, there's a wonderful Pink Floyd song called Us and Them, which, according to certain online sources and reputable sources, they might say, oh, that's a little ungrammatical, or that's a little uncommon. So again, when it comes to, when it comes to the object position, I find you have a little more flexibility with playing with the order and which one you want to emphasize. And then finally, rule number 6, proper nouns are usually placed at the end, with the exception of rule number 3, where I, the first person, is always placed at the end. Proper nouns, this just means names, the names of people. So, she and Tom are a couple. Tom and she are a couple. It sounds weird, right? It's like, no, she and Tom, right? He and Bill, whatever it is, right? So she and Tom are a couple. Here, are you and Leah friends? Are Leah and you friends? That's not too bad. But yeah, are you and Leah friends? So usually you want to place the proper noun at the end. Yeah, we called him and Jan, right? We called him and Jan. Okay, and again, the only exception to this would be rule 3, where me or I comes at the end. So just like here, do I have one here? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so you would, and okay, earlier in the video, you saw like Tom and I, Billy and I, Jan and I, Jim and me, right? So yeah, make sure you keep that in mind as well. Okay, so today we have looked at the basics of English pronouns with subjects and objects, and we have looked at some of the common uses or preferred uses when it comes to the order of pronouns. If you have any questions about this, please leave them in the comments, and make sure you do the quiz on engvid.com. So I will see you later. Thanks so much. Tell you and Barbara, your friend Barbara, tell her and you, or you and her. You tell me in the comments which answer is correct according to what we have discussed. Thank you very much. Good luck. Subscribe to my channel, like the video, share it, tell your friends, and I'll see you next time.